Hi everyone, I'm Jason Sawle and I'm the Global Schools Manager at Esri. I just want to take a few minutes to introduce the ArcGIS Online Scene Viewer as a tool for creating some really interesting VR experiences. Now, what you can see on your screen at the moment is the ArcGIS Online Scene Viewer, and it's a 3D map viewer. Some of the basic things I can do in here, I can just go and change my base map, so I'm not going to choose oceans. I can go and choose imagery, depending on what I want to see in my VR experience. So let's imagine a scenario where, in a very basic terms, how we can use the scene viewer is if I want my students to go and explore other parts of the world maybe we can't go to, inaccessible normally. So maybe something like Mount Everest. Now I can just go and click on search, but Mount Everest will actually, in my search box, I can click on Mount Everest and I will navigate to that location. And you will see I'm in a plan view at the moment, but I can very easily just start to move around, change the perspective, and start to see some of the glaciated features of Mount Everest. But how do I actually create a VR experience really from this? Well, this is maybe the view I want my students to be looking at, something like this. I can see the pyramidal peak for Everest, I can see the corries surrounding it. And yeah, I'd like my students to be able to see this particular view, but I don't want them to try and manage or try and work out where this view is. So there's a concept inside Scene called slides. On the left hand side, I click on the slides button, a little menu opens for me, and I can just click on capture slide. And this geographic location and this particular viewpoint, the camera angle, if you like, for later on, if you're thinking about VR experiences, is saved with this slide. And I can go and change my view. Maybe I want to come down and look it up from a different perspective. Get that just right, and I can capture the slide again. And you'll see if I click on the previous slide, I'll move back to there, and I can go back again. You'll also notice that these slides appear at the bottom of my screen. Now I can also change base maps or what data actually appears in my scene viewer as well with this. So if I was to go and change the view slightly again, and this time maybe I don't want the imagery view, what I want is maybe go back to my topographic map. I can change my topographic map. Let's maybe tweak that a little bit, and I click on capture slide. And now if I was to go back to my original view, what you'll see is the base map changes back to my aerial photography, or I can click on my slide 3, which changes back to the base map. So there's some basic concepts that we want to keep a hold of as we move through this. And I want to show you how we can use the scene viewer and the slides to create some really interesting VR experiences for students. So if we're keeping the idea of the concept of slides inside the scene viewer, I want to show a different example now where these slides have been used to really good effect to give us a different type of VR experience. So I'm just going to change my tab. And this time, so we're zoomed out again to the whole of the world, as you can see. And at the bottom you can see a whole series of slides that have been created here. I'm going to show you here how these slides can actually help us not only navigate to different locations automatically, but also turn layers on and off in here. And this is really focused on giving our students an experience of an event that happened in 2021. It was the La Palma volcanic eruption. In this case we're going to be looking at drone data that was flown by the La Palma Island Council and made publicly available for anyone to go and use. And so again, I can start the experience using the slides. I can click on the slide here, it will take us around to some context for La Palma. Where is it? Let's zoom into La Palma. And just bear in mind that by using these slides, it means the students are not going to be using or trying to work out how to use the scene viewer and some of the controls and maybe get lost or go to different places. And so you can direct the locations where you want students to be focusing. So I'm going to turn on the next slide, which is actually going to turn on a layer of drone data from the lava flow, and we can zoom into that, and again, but you can see I've still got complete control over the scene, so I can still use the controls that I've got, so I'm not fixed in to just using the slides, so I can navigate to other places as well. And you can create a really interesting experience, again, of somewhere where the students wouldn't be going to. This is quite topical. This data was made available every day, and so you can actually create this sort of geography in the news type of virtual experience to experience this volcanic eruption almost in real time in 3 dimensions and using some of the latest data. What you won't have on here is much contextual information. We could add some other information layers in here with some pop-ups and things like that. But what we don't really have is contextual information about the eruption, why it's occurring, why it's happening this particular way, and other information we might be interested in. What we can do, we can take these scenes that we've created and saved, and we can use them in other applications. And the next example I want to show is the use of scenes inside a story map. And then we can actually add some more contextual information, and I'll show you some different ways we can actually control navigating around a virtual environment. This next example is really bringing virtual experiences to a more of a local level, and this one is a virtual experience of a river system. Now this river system happens to be in the UK, but you can create one of these tours for a river system maybe you use for your studies, or maybe your local river in there. So just think about the components I put together in here, and you can copy this for your own river system. And so what we've done is taken a scene view, we've saved that, and we've taken it and we've pushed it into a story map. So this is a story map, and I've added the scene to a sidecar application inside Storymaps. And again, you see here is a typical scene we've read before, but this time instead of using the slides to actually move around in here, we've actually adapted and used the slides in another way, and we're going to use something called map actions inside a story map. And a map action allows me to turn layers on and off and navigate to another place. So in this way, students to have this virtual experience, all they have to do is click on a button. And so there we go, and zoom in. I've turned on the actual centre line for the river, and you can see that I've actually got some more contextual information which we were lacking in just the scene view. And so likewise, we can actually take the students on a journey through the river system. We can turn on tributaries, we can take different views, we can overlay different types of data. And again, this data is still interactive inside here. And again, I've still got control of the scene as well. As I scroll down my bar on here, on the left hand side, we can start to navigate to the different features of a typical river course in here. So we've got the upper course, and we can also mix in other media in this case. So I have a pop-up here, and there's a photograph from the source of the river. I'm just going to dock that here. And we can take the students on a journey through the river system, exploring different features that you might want to explore. So again, think about a river system. Maybe there's a river system you can't go to that you want to create this for. It could be a river system that's near you that you might want to create this as a primer before you go, or maybe as a reminder for when you come back from your fieldwork. So if I click on here, again, it's the same concept. You can see here's the dam that's actually in the scene, and I particularly like this one here where we can see the junction of the two rivers coming together. So here's the actual image of the river there, and we can see that in the virtual landscape. I think this is a really powerful way for students to experience a virtual environment. It's a blend of the 3D scene viewer, of more traditional media like images, but also wrapped up in this. Think of the story map. Think of the story map as almost like the destination, the way that the VR experience is experienced by the students in there. And you can add as much contextual information along the side as you want to on here. I think it's a really powerful way of starting out a journey with including VR in your lessons or lectures. If we think about Storymaps as being a destination for these 3D scenes we have inside ArcGIS Online, well, there's another destination I'd like to show you, and this is quite a new app. I think Tom's going to go into this in more detail. I want to take you back to the La Palma example we showed before, and I just want to show you the concept, come back to the concept again of slides. You can see these at the bottom of the screen. We know we can use those to navigate around the globe. And I also mentioned before, think of these as also camera angles, because this is how they can be used and thought of if we want to create a fully immersive 3D experience using things like an Oculus headset. Now the other destination where we can push the scene into, I was going to show you on the left hand side here. We have something called 360 VR, which is a new app we have that creates 360 VR experiences. And if you think about, look at the scene we have here with the slides in here. If I push that into there, into into VR 360, and here's what I've done before just to save some time. You can see those slides now translate into these round circles, and these round circles are camera angles that you'll see inside an Oculus headset. But I can still use this on a desktop in here. It has a different type of functionality. I can't zoom in this particular app in here, but I can still have that same experience. And you can see, I think you can recognise those slides and those positions that we showed you in the scene viewer is now in our 360 VR app. So it's the slides that translate from the scene viewer into the headset and help us navigate around this space. So lots of exciting things to happen. I'm going to finish there and hand you back over to Tom. Thanks a lot.